So I will ask a couple of questions from you guys. So what is Node.js? Basic question. Node.js. What is it? Jishon. Or anyone can answer that? That's wrong. Totally wrong. Yeah, yeah. People will ask a couple of questions like this. So Node.js is kind of like an environment that allow you to run JavaScript on the server side. That's it. Okay. It's not a framework. Really, it's not a framework. It's written using Java and C. So it's not a framework. And it's just an environment that will compile JavaScript code to the server language and allow that code to be executed on the server side. Okay. And there's a lot of things that are going on behind the scene that you don't even know. For example, there are a bunch of loopback. So if you really dive deep into the backend side, and you say you have experience to working with Node.js, people will ask you a couple of questions. What is loopback? What is async await promise? Something like that. Yeah, and it's very hard to answer. There will be also a couple of questions about cons, select, and what's the differences between those three. Okay. There will be a couple of questions about the backend side, about the language, and I will send you the list of those questions and answer as well. So make sure you take time to read and understand all the questions and answer. Okay. So that aside, I will send that to you this week, maybe today or tomorrow, because the list is very long and I had to read all the answer and organize them. Okay, so here's the next question. What is Express? One, it's a framework, but what does it do? Question. What is Express? JS. Another one. Wait, did I not say anything? Oh my god, sorry. Right, sorry. So the first question is what is Node.js? We know it. I answered that already. So what is Express? We're learning Express. So what is Express? Ta-da. Express. Anyone can answer this? I'm gonna ask. Who is it? Who's gonna be? Win. Yeah, framework for Node. Yes. Okay. So more detailed questions. What did you use last week? What feature of Express that you used last week? Okay. So we use middleware, but use a couple of functions here, right? So this is a middleware. We also learn the router. sorry, also learn this router. What else? Last week, we learned that Express is a framework, and why did we say it's a framework instead of a library? One advanced feature for a framework is that it can be integrated with other libraries, right? So Express actually used a lot of different libraries. Wait, you didn't see it? Really? Wait, hang on. Uh, I think it said the wrong screen. uh, Hang on. Okay. And yeah. Okay. Sorry guys, I said the wrong screen. Okay, here we go. So last week we learned Express and we learned a couple of features of Express, right? The first one was the middleware. We use something called, we did use it, not really, but we actually use it. We use it a lot. Actually, you can see in your app.js file, there will be a bunch of lines which use something inside. And inside that is going to be functions, right? And this is how you use middleware. This is how Express allow you to interact with other libraries. For example, router, right? Or body parser. Wait, there is a this one. It's very important. No, really? My God. Hang on. Accessory. Okay, do you see it now? It's Monday. No, it's Tuesday. You see the notes here? Okay. So again, we learn that Express is a framework, right? And a framework is different from a library. A framework allows you to interact with other libraries, right? And how did Express allow you to do that? In your app.js file, you will see a bunch of lines which look very similar to this, right? It will start with app.use something. Something here is going to be functions, right? And these you will call them middlewares. And that's how a framework allow you to interact with other libraries. Right? So next is that we also learn router, which is another feature from Express. Router will allow you to reroute or reroute all the requests, incoming requests into multiple branches, right? Depending on the name of the branches, for example, /user, /login, /blocks, for example. And that's how Express reroute or reroute the request, the incoming request, into separate logics. What did we learn from Express yesterday? What else? What else? Not much. We learn middleware, we learn router, we learn what else? Oh, we also learn, here we go. Sorry about the slices. We also learn the MVC design pattern, right? So what's M, V, and C here? What is this? I'm gonna ask. Oh, we have two Dũng. Tiếng. M, V, C. This is very important. M, V, C. Jishon say, don't ask her. Okay, model. Okay, I'm gonna say model, view, and controller. But what do they do? Model, view, controller. You will see model, view, controller, something like that. But what do they do? Last week we learned a lot about the controller, right? So everything that happened inside our Express app was controller. Yeah, actually there was a better name for that. I just forgot. Mobile vehicle. Yeah, whatever. Okay, last week we learned a lot about the controller, right? So controller is just a kind of like a middleware that will handle all the incoming requests, and it's gonna pass the request to a appropriate logic to handle those requests, right? The incoming requests. Controller is kind of like middleware. It will connect the view with the database or the model. Okay. And view, we actually learned about view a couple of weeks ago, which is React. React is kind of like a view, and it is separated completely with our backend side, right? So we didn't learn much about the model. And this week we will learn the part that we mostly avoid from last week, which is the model part here. And model here, you may ask, what is model? The model, the word model is very abstract, right? It's used in any framework, any other languages. We also call that models. But what do it actually do? So what does it do? We learned it briefly from last week. What does it do? Just this is kind of like reviewing. So who's gonna answer this? So who's the duck here? Who's this? I don't know who's this. Why do I see only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10 people? Okay, Jishan, what is model? I bet you know this. Model. What is model? Here's the model. Actually, the model is the most important part of our application for the whole applications, right? So it's a funny picture. And model is it's kind of like the core, the core of our application. Model will connect our code, our application with the database, right? And database is kind of like the heart of any applications. Without a database, it actually it's not really a complete app without a model. Nah, it's our CEO, Charles. It's very funny. Yeah, this stuff. So today we will learn a lot about model, not really the model, but the core of application, which is database. Okay, we learn database first, and then we will learn model tomorrow. So today is all about database. Model is just something that connect our database with our code, which is our Express tab. So today we're not gonna do any coding. No more JavaScript. Yay. No more JavaScript today. Okay. And there are actually two parts of assignment today. Two parts. The first part will be not really the first one. The first one is going to be the certificate from MongoDB University. So it's going to be this University. It's free. And the first one is very important. You can join anytime you want. The first chapter will guide you how to install MongoDB and how to connect to the MongoDB on the cloud. For example, you will have something called MongoDB Atlas. So it's the official cloud for MongoDB server, and it's a cloud server. Sorry. This class will also guide you to how to install a couple of other tools. For example, here we go. Compass. How to use Compass. How to use MongoDB Shell, Mongo Shell, Mongo Atlas, and there was one more tool I just forgot. Well, we will talk about it later, but I would strongly advise you to finish the first chapter of the whole course here, which is the M. I will link you to that, but here's the name of the course, M001, MongoDB Basic. It's very important. Okay. So can you show us an example of a database? Okay. So a database looks like this. Hang on. So here we go. Oh, sorry. So here is a database on the cloud server, which is Atlas I talked about earlier. Right? Can you see this? Can you see the my terminal? Okay. So here's a couple of databases. So this is the whole server. I run the command show DBs, which show all the database on this server for this user on this server. Okay. So right now I have a database called video, right? So I'm gonna use that database, show all the collections, movies, the file. Okay. So here's a sample document of the database. I will talk about it later, but here, as you can see, it looks like this, right? It looks like JSON, right? Very similar to JSON. And actually, this is called BSON. It's not JSON, but it's BSON. Okay. So here's how the document looks like. And there will be a couple of terms that we need to know about database for MongoDB. So here we go. So here's a fun question from Charles. So you had two options. I'll give you $1 million today or 1 cent. And I will double that every single day. For example, today I will give you 1 cent, tomorrow I'll give you 2 cents, the next day I will give you 4 cents. And it's gonna happen for 30 days. So which option do you want to, so which option do you choose? Okay, why is that? So whoever learn study finance should be able to answer this question, right? Okay, so why is, yeah. But in real world, do you really choose the second option? So that's in the theory, right? Yeah, so that's the math, that's a theory. You want to choose the second option, but in real world, real life, do you want to choose it? I don't. I have the option to receive the money in 30 days for every single day. Also, I have an option to receive $1 million right away, right now, right here. So I would pick the first option. Depends. It really depends on you. I would pick the first option, get the $1 million and run away right away, rather than waiting for 30 days. Right? So there's no 100% of the chance that you get the full amount of money after 30 days. Okay. So yeah, in theory, I would wait for 10 days, but in real life, I would pick $1 million and run away right now. Like, what happened if you die tomorrow? Like, just shit, I shouldn't say that, but so everything have a chance, right? Peter invite. Are you sure that it's gonna happen? Like, what if I run away the next day and not giving you the money? Okay, there's a bunch of so in theory we learn that the second option is the best, right? It's better than the first one, but in real application, sometimes we want to pick the first option. Okay. What is this? Oh, so this is the update for the coronavirus. It's really old. It's the last quarter. So here we go. So talking about data, why? As you know, that data was actually accumulated like 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, when the internet bloomed, and all the data will be stored somewhere, and as time goes, here we go. As time went by, the amount of data was accumulated, getting bigger and bigger. So right now you will have like so more than 90% of the data was created the last 2 years. Right? That's why machine learning and data science or deep learning or AI is very popular right now. They are kind of like a trend. And what they use is a bunch of data. They use a bunch of data input, and those data actually was accumulated for like more than 20 years. So what I want to say here is that the number of data, the amount of data is huge, and it grows exponentially, just like the 1 cent here, right? For the next day, it's double. Day by day, it's get double every single day. Data is very similar. It grows exponentially every single day. And to deal with that, we need a database system. Basically, database system allow us to store a lot of data, right? So we can store data in a JSON file, data.json file, just like how we did last week. But it will not work if the data grow exponentially, right? It works for a simple database, for example, just like 100 entries, it works really well. But what if we have like millions of entries or million of objects like that? Take very long time to read the whole file, find something in that, change a little bit that, and then save the whole million objects into the database or into the file again. Take a long time to do that. And there's no thing that makes sure our data is safe, right? So remember, whenever we write the database back to the file, the data application, and something wrong with the code, the file here will get broken. It's gonna be instead of an array like this, it's gonna be sometimes it's gonna be an empty string if something wrong in our code, or it's gonna be an object if something wrong in our code. So we didn't have anything to make sure our database is safe at all. So the database system are made or are created to handle these tasks, to store a big amount of data, to make sure our data is safe. Yeah, so we didn't have any mechanism to protect our data in data.json file. And the database system also allow us to access the data much faster comparing to file system, write file scenes or read file scenes, something like that. Or using a map or using a for loop is much like takes a lot of time comparing to the lookup mechanism in the database system, right? So you see the difference if you actually try to do that. So I will show you later. Also, database system also have a bunch of different functions that allow you to filter, to sort, to do a lot of things to your database. It allows you to update and save it correctly. So basically, these two, you will call them CRUD operation. Okay. CRUD operation, create, read, update, and delete. So every function in our database system based on these operations. Database protection, yeah, there is from some cloud server. They have it. Let me see, where's my mouse? So there will be a bunch of different mechanisms to protect or to optimize your database on the cloud. But for a local machine, there will be security as well, but you have to configure. It's not there by default. You have to configure it. So what else? There are a bunch of different techniques to do that. So we talk about database. Right now, there are actually two main type of database: SQL and NoSQL. SQL means structured query language. Okay, SQL or NoSQL is not only this one. So the difference between these two is that SQL were actually implemented long time ago. It's kind of like its original way to handle the database, to manage the database. And there's the two most famous SQL database system, which is MySQL or PostgreSQL. There will be one more, which Java developer actually use it a lot, Oracle. I think this one's very popular in Korea. Vietnam actually use Oracle a lot. So there will be SQL and NoSQL. So we learn about SQL. I talk about SQL. It's kind of like table and columns. So in a table, inside database, there will be a bunch of columns, tables, right? Inside a single table, there will be a bunch of columns and rows. So each column is going to be a property. Each row is going to be an entry. For example, we have a table named people or human, right? A single row will be a single person, and columns will be like properties. For example, the height, the age, the weight, face, or something like that. Anything. So columns will be properties, and row will be an entry with a person. Tables will comprise of columns and rows, which is a kind of like a kind or humans. So that's SQL. But in NoSQL, SQL will have tables. I don't have illustration for this, sorry guys. And table will have row and columns, right? I don't know how to make it bigger. Can you see this? It's very small. Okay. Okay, so SQL we have table, rows, and column. But NoSQL we have, they will call collections. And in each collection you will have documents. And in document you will have each document you will have field or blocks, just call it fields. Okay. So as you can see here, in every single table, you will have the same columns, and each row will have the same columns, no matter what. It could be null, or could be empty string, or could be anything, but each row will have the same number of columns, right? In NoSQL, instead of having tables, they will call it collections. And in each collection, you have document. Document is kept like row here, but each document will have fields. So yeah, access is very similar to SQL. Yeah, it will have tables and row and columns. So the major difference between SQL and NoSQL is like, for example, this document A can have 5 fields, but B can have 6 fields. Like it's fine, totally fine. There's no restriction. But for SQL, row 1 will have 5 columns. Row 2 also have 5 columns, right? It cannot have 4 or 6. It has to be 5, same. So that's the major difference. There, it's very strict on the structure on SQL, for SQL, but for NoSQL, it's not as strict. That's the raw database. I'm not talking about the ORM or ODM or ODM. So here you have something called ORM. It's a tool to allow you for your code to work with the database. It's kind of a tool. So for the same tool in NoSQL database, you have something called ODM, Object Relationship Mapper or Object Document Mapper. They are different. Okay, just know it. We're not going to use it today. Tomorrow we will learn about these. But today, just know that we have some tool to allow us to work with the database inside our code. So here's a major difference. SQL is very strict on the structure. NoSQL is not as strict. Right? And NoSQL actually is growing very fast recently because there are a big chunk amount of application that don't require transaction queries. You don't have to be very strict on that. So we have a bunch of smaller apps that will use NoSQL or MongoDB, or you can call Firebase. Firebase is actually a kind of NoSQL database. So this one, you don't need a real server. You can run it on the front end. You don't need a backend server to run the app. So it's another step we learn to do. Firebase, if you have time, you can read more on this. Firebase is very fun to use. Yeah. So SQL is more like Excel, and Mongo is more like Word. So I will show you here. Kind of type. So here's a table, right? So I'm going to say ID, name, age, and ID is 1, and par, ID 22, and 2 win is 28, was it? Okay, so this is SQL. You will have another table, say address. I'm gonna add one more table here. Insert one on the left. So person ID. So for example, I'm gonna store my address in here. So I'm gonna say 12 Honda, and the ID is, I don't care about the ID here. It could be anything. So the person ID, I will get the ID from this table, right? So my ID will be 1. Okay, so that's how SQL store data. So this is SQL, and this is going to be your NoSQL. Okay, so this SQL and this NoSQL. So I'm going to store it as so it's going to be people. For example, I'm gonna call it people, and the ID will be 1. For example, name will be Khóa, and age is gonna be 32. Right. So people is gonna be an array. Collection is an array, and inside the array you have a bunch of documents. Okay. Same thing. So here you will have ID number 2, and name is Vinh. Age is gonna be 28 for people here. So this is how data will be stored inside our NoSQL. It's not going to be a, can it be an array? Yeah, it can be anything. So we'll talk about it later, don't worry. So this is how data normally stored inside SQL. And this is how NoSQL store the data. Okay. So if you want to store another tape, another information, so I'm going to delete this column. It's going to look like this. Okay. So I want to store the address, right? I'm going to call this addresses. It's going to be an array as well. Inside an array, we have a bunch of objects. We also have that in NoSQL, there are 2 ways to store data. You can store it like this. It's going to be something I don't care. I don't really care about this ID. It could be anything. Full, you can name it full. Okay. So here's the person ID. It's going to be 1. That's me. And address going to be 12.1. So this is how data is saved, is stored in NoSQL, kind of like document, right? That's why we have a comparison. Say SQL is more like Excel, and Mongo is or NoSQL is kind of like Word, Microsoft Word. You use it. So very similar to this. And this one, if that person have 2 addresses, we're gonna sort like this. Same thing. And saying I have 2 blocks of houses. Yeah, this is also relational. There is relationship in NoSQL as well. So the idea here is NoSQL actually is trying to adapt a lot of concept from SQL. Or this is one way to store it. You can have another way. I'm going to say, for example, ID1, ID full, and this is going to be name, age, the 32. You can store data like this too. It's fine. You can have a bunch of repetitions, for example, like this. You can start like that too. It's fine in NoSQL. It's fine. That's why there are actually two ways to store it, but it's not recommended to store something like that. You can have object. Can you have object 0 with more variable than object 1? Yeah, you can. For example, I'm gonna have win here. And this is gonna be win. This is gonna be 38 address. What if he have he's married? Married. How do you spell that? Marriage. Just make it simple. True. Okay. Just something like that. So here, one more fields. Here, one more props, which I don't. Yeah, right. It's fine, totally fine in NoSQL. But you cannot have, for example, insert column, right? True, or you can say no. Every single field we have that columns, but in NoSQL you don't have that. Okay, you will understand this later on as we go deep into the database. Don't worry too much. Just this an idea of how data look like in database. Right now, if I ask you if you have any question, I think people will not have that much of that many questions. It's very how do you say? It's very confusing. Looking database that look like this, right? So here I will show you. So in the real database, how it look like. For example, take a while. Okay. So next slide. Okay, here we go. Okay. So here's the blocks that I created for you guys last week, week 6 for your weekly project, and this is how the database looks like, right? You will have, here we go. So the whole thing here, the whole blocks here is a collection, and a collection is an array of documents, And so this is a single document. It will have the field ID, it will have the reaction ID field. So it will have a bunch of fields, right? Okay, so for this block, for this document, you have the field called images, but here you don't have it. For this document, you don't have that field, right? Cool. So this tool is called Compass. It's called Compass, and it allows you to, it's kind of like a tool with a UI to allow you to manage your database. You can change the view. For example, you can see this is the default view, this is the object view, and this kind of like table views. It looks like SQL. Okay. So there are a couple of reasons why we're teaching MongoDB instead of any SQL database system, because Mongo goes really well with Node.js, Node.js and Express, yes. It goes well with the bean stack, the MERN stack, right? And it works really well for small app. And you can actually, you can change the database structure later on during the development without clearing everything and redo everything from scratch again. So, because there's a characteristic, you don't need this column later on. For example, if right now you don't have this column, just delete them. So for example, at the start, you don't have that column, but later on, if you want to add it, for NoSQL, you can do that, but for SQL, you cannot do that. You have to clear the whole database and start again. or you must give it default value. But for NoSQL, you don't need to worry about those things. You just, if you want to add more props or add more field to that document, just add it like that. For example, married, yes, true or false, just like that. You can just add it. But for SQL, you cannot do that. Okay? And it's really depend on your application that you have to design with database system you want to go with. For example, if your application it's just have like a normal blog or a very simple app like showing the products, purchasing something, and like sending out some information for the user, then using MongoDB is very good. It allows you to develop your app faster. It allows you to have some change on the way, or later on you want to add more props or add more field to a document. You can totally do that with MongoDB and easily as well. But for SQL, if you decide to add something later on, it's very hard. You have to clear, sometimes you have to clear the database or you have to clear the whole table. And SQL is better for related or database which require strictly relationship, a very strict relationship. For example, a bank. For example, for a bank, if you want to deduct an amount of money from this account, right? That amount of money has to go somewhere else. So, which means another account has to increase, kind of like the same amount of money. So it's very, the relationship is very strict. That's why for banking system or something similar to that, people will use SQL. SQL. And right now you will see there's a big difference between SQL and NoSQL, but actually when we start using something called ORM here, ORM or ODM, just to go this term, ORM used for SQL, ODM for NoSQL. Okay. So ORM right now, we're not going to use any ORM, we will use ODM, which will be Mongoose. We will learn this tomorrow, maybe. And the differences between them is not that much because the idea of this library or this framework is that they want to make it similar. They want to make the ORM very similar to the ODM, the method. For example, you have something called, if you want to find an entry or document inside your database, you will do something like this. The model will be your model name. It can be anything. For example, right now it's going to be person.find, right? So this is a method to find a document or a bunch of documents in Mongoose. But in some ORM or for example, SQL Alchemy for Flask, you also have something very similar to this. The idea is that they want to have the very similar function to do the same thing in both SQL and NoSQL. So that's why we decide to show you one ODM, one ODM, so that in the future, if you want to learn more ORM or another ODM, it's very similar to Mongoose. Very similar to Mongoose. So you have the idea when you learn something new later on. And for MongoDB, we will use these four programs or software. The first one is which is very important, MongoDB program, which is the core of Mongo. So you need to install this and you need to download this and install it to your computer. So this program will be the core. It will allow you to run the Compass, allow you to run the cell, and connect your machine to Atlas, which is a cloud MongoDB server, a cloud server for MongoDB, sorry. So we need to install this. And this tool, the Compass, which I talked about earlier, it's just a graphic user interface here. graphic user interface. You can either use this, for example, you want to look at all the collections, just click on it. Okay. So you can either use this or a shell. What is a shell? A shell is kind of like a command line tool. Looks like this. So here we go. So I'm going to show you I will achieve the same results. Here we go. I'm going to say Mongo. So I connect to my database. So I will see the list of database, which is the same here. I have the same list of database, right? Sorry. Right. I have the same list of database. Here we go. And for example, if I want to see the blocks, so show collections. So I will see the same list of collection, just like here, blocks, React, reviews, RTS. What is this? I don't remember what this is. Reset token, refresh token, and the users collection. So we have the same collections. So you can either use a compass, which give you a very good user interface to work with the database, or you can use a command line tool, which is called shell. They're the same. But for this tool, it takes a lot of skill to use it, right? You don't remember all the syntax. So what if I want to see the first document here? I want to see this one. Sorry. Okay, I want to see the list of documents inside my blocks collection. I'm going to do something like this. db blocks. Fine. So here we go. See here, reaction. So the same result, the same ID, the same reaction object, 1, and the same information, right? So you have the option, use compass or use shell, depending on what you want to use. So which one do you like? 1 or 2? Compass or shell? You have 2 tools which do the same thing, compass and shell. Can anyone tell me the pros and cons of compass from what you see here? Me? Which one do you like? Yeah. Actually, sometimes I refer for, compass. This can quickly show you the document that you want to see, right? Without typing anything, just click, click, click. For example, you want to find, if you want to see inside that, just like that, or you can just scroll down and see them. Go to the next page. Very simple, without remember any syntax. But for using cell, you need to remember all the syntax. Okay. There's a lot of different syntax for using cell. Okay. You can type IT to see more. So 2 and 3, you can use anything you want. All right. For the 4th, it's called Atlas, and Atlas is this Mongo Atlas. So I advise you guys to create an account here. Create an account. You can create an account with Google or just your username and password. Okay, create an account here, log in. Why Atlas? Atlas is actually It's a cloud server instead of having, so Atlas cloud server for MongoDB database, for MongoDB. So instead of saving database on your local machine, we can store it on cloud, right? Just like your iCloud, you can store your images on your phone, or you can upload that to a cloud, and then on your other device you can retrieve them. Right? So Atlas is a cloud. You also have something called localhost, which is this. I will show you the localhost. So here's my localhost. Okay, I store these information on my local machine only, only on my local machine. I also be able to connect to my cloud server. If I click like this, for example, here. So this is a cloud server. So these data will be only inside my cloud. It's not on my machine. Okay, there's nothing inside. Okay, that's how you connect. I will show you how to connect to cloud later on. Just during the break, can you go and create this account on cloud.mongodb.com. Create an account here. Okay, next. So here's things. Here's the basic terms. We will have database. So this is a database. Blocks here is a database. Blocks API here also a database. Test here also a database. Okay. And usually a single app will have normally we will have a database. But if your app is very big, you have a group of database. So this is kind of like advanced. We will not use it in this course. We only use one single database for a single app. Okay. And a database will comprise of a bunch of collections. So this is collection. Okay, collection, collection, collection. So they are all collection. So we have right now have 36 collection inside my server. So a collection is a group of documents, related documents. It's very similar, right? As you can see here, reviews is a collection, and inside the collection, we will have a bunch of related documents. As you can see, we have mostly, so every single field here is mostly the same. ID, reaction, deleted, very similar to the other documents. So every single document will have very similar structure. But if you decide to give one more field here, it's fine. It's not going to break anything, but it's fine. Okay. And a document will be a group of fields or data. For example, the ID, the content, the boolean here, or just a simple string contain or an object ID. So I will explain object ID later. So instead of you storing an ID of 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, just like in a table, NoSQL will store something like this, object ID. And so we have database, collection, and documents. All right, so here's the data type for a document. As someone asked earlier, who was it? Oh my God, I don't remember. Okay, Mark asked, can the field name be an array instead of a string, right? So yes, the answer was yes. Here we go. We can store D type of data. We can store double here is the number. Double here is a number with decimal. For example, 1.2 is a double. 1.24, 25, something like that is double. And this is just a number, and this is an integer, right? So number can be a double or can be an integer. So double is integer. Yeah, it's kind of like float, but in a lot of language they call double. Okay, and we have string, right? We know that string. We can have binary data. We're gonna see binary data a lot because it's very costly to store binary data in a database. Okay, that's right. Yeah, there's a little bit different between flow and doubles. So it's going to call by 64. Just don't worry too much about it. Right? There are actually no flow here. Right. So we have number, double and int will be number. Binary data is binary data. For example, for picture, for image, you will store as binary data, right? And we will not see this a lot because it costs a lot of memories or a lot of space to store this data, right? So usually to store images, we will store it like this. So for images we will start like this. Oh my God. Where is, so, oh my God, where is it? Where the heck is image? So to store image in database, we will start like this. Oh no. Okay, here we go. We will store the URL. Not gonna store as binary data, right? For, just assume that a database will be about like for a cloud, a small app is about like a couple of hundreds megabytes, hundreds megabytes, right? If you store the binary data, for example, every single image will be kind of like 1 megabyte. If you store 100 images, it costs 100 megabyte already, right? So that's why we don't store binary data there. So usually we store string. We upload the image somewhere else and we get the string, put it in our database instead of saving the whole file. Right, so that's double, integer, string, binary data. You have boolean, which is true or false. Okay. And you also have date as well. So for date, it looks like this. Here's a date. Okay, so this is a date. It's a date mark. You can store object, you can store array, you can store object ID. Object ID is very special. It's something Mongo, it's kind of like a data type which Mongo created. So instead of storing data like ID1 or ID2, right? If we store like this, ID will be object ID, for example, 1, something, 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 and some number, something, and 1. So basically, we store the ID like this. We will talk about this later. So this kind of like ID, the normal ID. And we have object and array. So here we go. Object, as you can see here, object here. Object, image is an array. Inside the array, we have 3 objects, right? And each object we have ID, URL, and cloud ID. Right? Cool. We cannot store an object inside a we cannot store an object here. So in SQL, in a table, we cannot store an object. You can store an array, but you cannot store an object. Okay. For SQL, but for Mongo or NoSQL, you can store an object and array as well. And it's easier to query object or array in MongoDB compared to SQL database. Okay, what else? So this is all about theory. We will practice later on in the afternoon to get more familiar with NoSQL language. Don't worry. So I will explain this. So this is a sample document. We have fields on the left side, on the left-hand side of the columns. We have the name of the fields, ID, title, year, something like this, genre, and on the right-hand side will be the value. Okay. So this is an object ID. This is a string. This is an integer. Another string, string, uh, a double. It's a double. So it's a number, but to be precise, it's a double. Okay. Integer, string, arrays, string. Okay. And so here is how we connect to a database. So a database, you have this URL just like this, right? Very similar. So this part is going to be the protocol, and then this is the domain, localhost 3000. This is going to be the port, domain and port. You may ask, what the hell is this? So this is going to be the username. This is going to be the password. Okay, let's see. This the whole thing here is going to be your connection string. Okay, and here's the protocol. This is a username. In order to access to this database, this is going to be the username, and this is going to be the password for this user. Okay, and this is going to be the domain, or you can call it the host. Sometimes you will see the port number behind that. Sometimes you don't. And here's the default database name. You can call it test, or you can call it reviews, or you can call it React. No, sorry, Blog API or Airbnb or blocks. So these are database names. You also have a default database name called test. Here we go. Test, default name. Okay. So that's pretty much everything. So let me recap, right? People are falling asleep or very lost right now. So that's a lot. I would say that's a kind of like an hour of talking, but to sum it up, you need to remember these things. Okay. The difference between SQL and NoSQL. Here we go. The difference between SQL and NoSQL. Sorry. Okay. It's very fun. Okay. I will ask people to pay attention here. Pay attention. Oh, attention, please. Yes or no? Yes. Recap. Yes. So there's a lot of theory, but to sum up, today you need to understand these concepts. Okay. SQL, there's currently right now in the market, there are two main database systems. Actually, database language, I would say database language, sorry. SQL and NoSQL. Okay, database language, SQL and NoSQL. They have different syntax, right? That's the first thing. They have different syntax. They have different structure. SQL is more like tables with rows and columns. NoSQL is more like a document page type like Word, which have objects. It looks very similar to object, but we call that JSON. Okay, JSON. So here's the data look like in NoSQL, and here's how the data look like in SQL. Okay, so that's the main difference. There are a lot going on behind that, but for now, just remember this. And we talk about it later when we get familiar with the database. So it's more like advanced. To understand this, you need to understand about SQL more, more than this, more than this. And to use MongoDB, we need to first install the MongoDB program, which I will show you after break, right? We need the core program, and this core program you will have the cell. So when you install this, when you install the first one, you also have the third one. So they come together, right? The second one, which is a graphic user interface, and you have to install it separately, right? And for MongoDB at last, you don't need to install anything, just create an account on the website here, cloud.mongodb.com, create an account there, and you have that. Just set it up. It's very simple. I also walk you through that in the afternoon, don't worry. And here's the main concept in MongoDB. It's very similar in, it's not really in MongoDB, it's in NoSQL. You also have these terms in Firebase as well, or Firestore. So basically, you have database, which very similar to SQL, also a database. Inside database, you will have a group of collections. And collection is here. So collection, this is a table. So this is a collection. So table is more like, collection is more like very similar to tables, which is groups or a set of documents. A set of documents. So this is a document. This is a document. Okay, it's a set of document or an array of document. Okay, and a document is just a more kind of like an object with a bunch of related data. For example, document A we have name and age. Document B we also have name and age. Sometimes you have more one more field or a couple of fields that different from the other documents. That's fine. That's not gonna break anything. Okay. And inside document you have different data type. Okay. Different data type. You can have, for numbers you will have double and integer. For number you have double and integer. For string you only have strings. For object you have object and array. An object ID. Object is very similar to JavaScript object, array as well. Array can be array of string, array of boolean, array of date, array of object ID, array of object, array of numbers. It can be array of anything. Okay. And inside the object here, you can have any drops you want. Right? You also have binary data. Binary data, which is kind of like the data, for example, for images, for video, you also have, it's also translated binary data to store inside your computer, to be run by your computer. So you have also something called object ID. This data type is very special. It's created by a MongoDB system to understand which kind of like to help the system to find a specific document much faster, right? So an object ID is that's gonna look like this. You have a string. Yeah, it's kind of like Haskell. Actually, the object ID have three parts. It's three parts. The first part here is gonna be the name of your collections or the name of your database. The second part is gonna be the data. It's kind of like Unix data. And the last part is going to be the ID, the actual ID of the document inside the collections. So if you want to read on this, there's an article about the object ID. I will link you guys later. Boolean, you have datetime object. So this one is very similar to datetime object in JavaScript. Okay. Oh, You have more type. Sorry, this is not enough. You have more type, but for example, you can store geolocation like locations inside JSON as well. I will talk about it later on week 9 or in week 9 or week 10 when we deal with location. Okay, don't worry about it yet. So here's an example. I think I already went through it 2 or 3 times, so I'm not gonna repeat it. So it's a recap. And for a to connect to a database, it could be on your local machine or it could be on the cloud. So you have a string like this, right? I'm going to copy this string and I'm going to open Mongo Compass. So this is how you connect to a database. Okay, so here you have, it will tell you to paste your connection string. So I'm going to paste it here, right? So the first part is going to be the protocol. Sometimes you see it MongoDB plus SRV. Sometimes you don't see it. You just see MongoDB like this. That's fine. And here's the on the left hand side of the column here, right? You have a column here. You have the column here. Oh, I cannot zoom in. Okay, on the left hand side of the column here is going to be your username. Okay, on the left hand side of the column here is going to be your username, and in between the colon and the @ symbol, it's going to be your password. Okay, between these, going to be your password, and after the @ symbol is going to be your host, or you can call domain. And after domain, you have a /, and after that // is going to be your database name. So for example, right now I don't know which database I have, but I know for sure that I will have a default database called test. Okay, so I'm not gonna connect to my database. I'm gonna click connect. So this is a free database on MongoDB University. You can connect to that as well. Okay, so here I connected to the cloud, which is from Atlas. So here's the bunch of database. So I will see the city. In city, I connect to this is gonna be the collection, neighborhoods. So in this collection, I will have a, right, so this is another type of data type of for a document. It's gonna be your location. We will talk about it later, don't worry. So we have ID, location, and the name of that location, right? You can see other database, for example, movies here. You see a bunch of different fields. So that's how you connect to a database, right? What is this? Okay, let's do a simple test here. I don't think it's correct. What is it? Which option do I should choose? Which answer? So let's walk through this. Which answer? So that's the whole recap. And this is going to be the small piece. So in order to connect to Code School test database, right? Can you connect to that yet? Oh, okay, sorry. You guys, you guys doesn't have the Mongo or yes. So you cannot do this. Okay, so assume that I connect to the Code School test database, right? I'm gonna copy this. Ta-da! And that's it. Okay. Mongo. Okay. So I'm connecting to the MongoDB database on the cloud. I will show all the database I have here. I cannot do that, sorry. So I do DB. So I connected to the database right now. So as you can see here, you will see a message say connected. Hey, let me see. Okay. So here's something here, which is I'm connected to the database. Okay. Okay, I'm banana. Next question. So here's a funny, it's kind of like a very simple, sorry. Yeah, this was created by Charles Murphy. He put a lot of bugs in it, a lot of traps in here. Okay, how many restaurants are there in the database? So you can use something like this, right? I'm gonna copy this command db.rest.count. So actually, for a name this collection rest, it's gonna be restaurant. But restaurant is too long. I don't want you to guys to type that word. So I make it, I name it rest, and you can use this function on this method to or this command to see the number of restaurant, the number of documents in our database. In this collection, sorry, in the rest collection. So right now there will be like 3,700 entries, right? So how do I know that? Let's connect to that database using the compass here. So as I said before, you have two ways to connect to a database, using Shell or using compass. Oh gosh, not this one. Oh, how do I go back? Let's see. Okay, here's the connection string. So I'm going to paste it here. Click next, connect. Yeah, you want to see it there? Yeah, sure. But you guys need the how do you say the MongoDB core. Not really Compass, yeah, core. You need to install that first in order to use Compass or Shell. I will help you guys this afternoon after break. Okay, so I connected to the database. When I click restaurant here, why do you have to do here? Okay, I'm gonna delete this. Just keep it there. So right now inside restaurant database, I have two collection, rest and to-dos. Okay, rest and to-dos. So inside rest, I have 3,772 documents, right? So using Compass, you don't actually need to count. It's shown here already. But using Shell, you have to count it. Okay, count. Okay, when you count, you see the results, 3,000. Okay, so that answer these questions. Ta-da! Right. Next. So what's the name? Next question. What's the name of this public restaurant with the ID here? Right. So here we see a bunch of restaurants. So the question was to find the name of the restaurant which have the ID that match this string. So you can either go through the whole list of 3,000 documents and find by your eyes, using your eyes to find it, or you can use query, right? You can use query. So I'm going to copy the ID here. It's too long to type. Yeah. So actually every single query here using sorting algorithm. So db.rest.find, you only find one document, or you can find multiple one. But right now, I know for sure that this ID is going to be unique. And when I use the ID to find the documents, I expect to receive only one document or nothing at all. So it's going to be one or no. So it's going to be a dot or no, right? So that's why I use file one. Don't worry, if you don't know about this method, don't worry. We will do the exercise to learn all of them in the afternoon. That's it. So it's not too complicated. So we will learn how to run queries for these questions. Okay. Right now I have 32 questions for you guys to practice. Right. So I'm gonna do database db.rest. Rest here is the name of the collection, and file1 is a function, right? Inside file1, I have the condition ID. So I want to find based on the ID field here, right? I want to find the document based on the ID field, and the value will be object ID. Oh no. Okay. Okay. So here's we need to find the ID, right? So let's go back and find the ID. What? Okay, so here's the ID. I'm gonna paste and I hit Wiki. Wait, this is a function, really? Okay. So by default, it's already written for me. So you don't have to type written. Written actually, this will bring the result in this format, something that you can read, right? Right, so I type this command. So I'm gonna type again. Actually, copy paste. Okay, I run this command, which means I find a document which have this ID, right? And you're gonna use this command a lot in the future. It's one of the basic command query. Okay, so here are the results. How can I get db command? What do you mean? db command? Which command? Oh, you want to access to db? You need to install this first. You need to install Mongo. So I will show you. You need to install MongoDB, right? We will do that. So here's how you install it. You need to install this, and then you have the shell. I will show you how to set up the shell later. It's very hard. Yeah, it's very hard to set up a shell, but there's some instructions here. There's a reason why I cannot do it a couple of times, because when you set up everything once, it's there forever unless you uninstall your computer or update or remove the software. Else you have there for it will be there forever. You don't have to install it again. So it's very hard for me to actually show you how to install it, right? But we will have the guide. There will be some problem in the guide, but so it's case by case, depending your folder, your structure in your computer, which you run into problem later. But you should follow this document. So Vin already put it there. You can go to this website, read the manual on how to install it. So here we have a couple of different ways to install, depending on your system. Okay. I forgot which one we need to use. So you use the community edition. Community edition. You have three options. You can install on Linux, Mac OS, or Windows. So right now I'm using Mac OS. Maybe just I will follow with Mac OS first. So here you can install using brew. Homebrew is you need to install Homebrew first for Mac OS only. This is for Mac OS. They have a tool called Homebrew. Okay. So the tool. Why is it in Vietnamese? What the hell? Really? Okay. So this Humble, you need to install this package and then use it. Or maybe you saw it before. Just type in Mongo and then use it. Okay. So if you don't want to use Mongo, if you don't want to use Brew to install it, you can use another way. Let me see. I will show you another way to install it without using Humble if you don't want. So basically, after you install it, after you follow the guides here, and then if you want to connect to a database, you type Mongo, right? Mongo. So here's my normal terminal. For that type Mongo, if I don't provide any connection string like this, for example, test, if I don't provide any connection string, it will automatically connect to the localhost. We see the database, all the database on my local machines. And here I can see all the database, right? So to check whether or not you install Mongo, just run this command. And okay, just run that command, this Mongo command. If you see something, that means, yeah, in the M001, you have installation guide. You don't have to complete the whole call, the whole search. It's take a while. You only need the very first part. So I'm gonna register here, right? Okay, whatever. Just log me in. Okay. So when you register the course, you have the very first chapter 0. It's not even chapter 1, chapter 0. And try to. Hi, I'm. All right. You don't need to watch on the tutorial video here. Just install Mongo Shell on Windows or install Mongo Shell on iOS or Linux. For example, install Windows. So here's the step. There are a couple of different ways to install it. So for Windows, you can go to the website. Just don't download the enterprise server. I think you need to pay money for this. I'm not so sure yet, but you can try. So install that. You download the MS file. Install that. Okay. Next, complete, and just move on. Next. Here's the important part. This part is important. So basically, on your database, on your local machine will be stored inside this folder, the bin folder. Okay. So for Windows, it's going to be stored in here, and the number changes depending on your version. Okay, don't worry about this number. So on database will be stored in here, and you have to follow this step in order to like define the environment variable on Windows. So follow the instruction carefully. Don't skip anything. Carefully follow the instruction. Okay. So basically, these steps will set up the global variables for your system. So it will tell your computer, okay, if you want to look at my database, just go to this folder. Okay, this folder. Here I will store all my database, and then you can try to run Mongo to see the database. Okay, that's fine. Then next step. So for Windows, click on this. For macOS, click on this. Or Ubuntu, click on this. Right. So after all, you have open a new terminal and type Mongo. Sometime you have to say Mongo. Mongo here will start the server, the MongoDB server. But right now I already have that server running, so I don't have to start again. That's why I got Mongo and I connect it to my database. Okay. So during break, try to, I'm gonna send you this course. Okay, I'm gonna send you this one. Guys, The link here changes every single month, so we cannot have that link. You can just go and find the course M001, the MongoDB basics. Follow the instruction there. It's up to date, so follow instruction. And then finally, we have everything. So that back to the problem earlier. So here, I stopped in the middle. So here you find the document with that ID, and the question was to find the name of the restaurant with the ID here, right? So the name will be Wild Asia. So Wild Asia here. Correct, great work. Next question. Any question here? Oh, here's the example answer. Okay, next question. How many restaurants have received a C grade? Oh my God, this one is hard. So C grade is in here. So it's going to be inside grades. It's going to be inside array dot grade. Okay. So here's a very special syntax. So we raise dot grade, right? Raise here is an array of objects, and each object will have this field grade. On your it's here. It's I'm typing on the chat window. So we have array grades, and inside an array we have a couple of objects, right? Or you can call document. Inside each document you will have the field called grade. So you can access to that field by using this syntax. Okay. So back to the questions. Question was how many restaurants we have that have the C grade. So I'm going to say db.res.count on the file. Okay, here the syntax, and then we count. I'm not so sure this works, but to try it. Okay, so the restaurant we have grades. Okay, dot grade will be C. There we go. We have the answer for 96. The condition is this first part. So this function phi actually have a 2 or 3 arguments. The first argument will be required, which is an object, and this object kind of like you can call the filter condition. So I want to filter on the results which have this array, and inside this array you have grade, the props, the field called grade, which equal to C, right? So we have the answer, and then finally I count the numbers. So I have for 96. Yeah, you see the answer here. What? All right, the answer here is from another question. So don't worry, the answer is actually 496. This question, the one who wrote it is very bad, which is our CEO. He was very rushed, so he copied the wrong, file chart. He copied the wrong sample and put it here. Wrong answer here. So actually the answer is 496 results. Right. So here, yeah, so that's it. Okay, I only got like 50% of the test. That's fine. It's just, so do you have any questions? We will practice more on the queries this afternoon. Don't worry. The main concept is just understand that in NoSQL there will be database, there will be collection, there will be documents. Inside documents you will have a bunch of different views, right? And then you need to know how to connect to a database, connect to a MongoDB database. And to connect to a MongoDB database, you need to install MongoDB core software. which you will do it following this instruction here. Okay. And after you install it, connect to the database using this syntax, this command, Mongo, and connection string here. Anything, right? And once you connect it to the database, you can enter a bunch of different queries, which we will practice this afternoon. And let's say, so here's a bunch of symbol command. You run command to connect to a database. Use something means use the database, connect to a database. This is connect to server, connect to database. And to do, here's the collection name. If you want to do something, just here's the function. So insert one means you want to insert or want to add a document to the collection, right? So you want to add a to-do, or you want to insert a bunch of to-dos at once, right? You have insert one or you have insert many. Basically, they're the same. Insert one to insert one document. Insert many, you can insert an array of documents. An array of documents. Okay? An array of documents. And then if you want to update something, we will do it later. Don't worry. So you basically you have this syntax update one. And the first argument will be the filter condition. So update one. So I'm gonna do it. So I'm gonna do it here. Okay. Update one. The first argument will be the filter condition. I would say filter condition. So I want to find all the documents, and based on this field to do, and the value will be equal to learn MongoDB. And I want to change the status. So the $sign set here is a kind of like a operations. I will show you guys this afternoon more. Right now it's too much right now. So I use operations to set the value of this field, complete field, change it to true. So right now it's gonna be, okay, so right now is, for example, right now it's false, right? Let's go with, let me connect to this one. Yeah. No. So I connect to this database. I want to change this one to true. So I can run this command. Okay. So it's not true for some reason. Set is complete true. Learn MongoDB. Something wrong. Oh, sorry. It's not DB blocks. It's DB to-dos. Guys, the collection name is DB to-dos, not DB logs. So I update. Okay. So I match count is 1 and the modify count is 1 as well, which means I successfully updated. So if I reload this, you can either hit file again here, or you can hit the Command R or Control R on your keyboard. So it's changed to true, right? Cool. So if I want to change it to back to false, just there we go. Back to false. Okay. Or if you want, you can use compass to do it. So here we do. I'm gonna. So this one I'm gonna change it to true. Update it. There we go. Same thing. Or you can write the command here as well. That's fine. Insert one or something. I don't usually use this one, but you can actually type on here. So this one is just a filter. Let's see. You have a bunch of different options. I haven't used this on a lot for updating. I only use it for finding something. For example, I want to find on the movies which have the title here. So I can say title. Here we go. Now you have all the movies with the title Kamen Sitter, right? So right now we have 3 entries which have the same title. So that's how you use compass and cell. Okay, maybe you haven't started your server. Try to run MongoDB. So in order to connect to your local machine database, you need to start the MongoDB server. Just like React app, you need to start the React server, or Node.js app, you need to start the Node.js server. And I forgot how I make my server to be always running. I just forgot it. Sometimes you only do it once and then you don't have to worry about it any. Okay, so let me find it. How to, okay, how to start MongoDB server on which one? Mac or Windows? Mac OS. Okay. So you need to run MongoDB, but for MongoDB, for new version of Mac, I remember you need to run something like MongoDB and path will be where anywhere that you keep the database. Let's say MongoDB path equal blah 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 here like this, or you can say MongoDB. That will give you some guideline. Oh, DB path, sorry, DB path, the directory for your database file. So it's going to be MongoDB path equal space and the name of the path where you the path where you keep the database. For example, right now you want to keep it in home. I'm not sure this works, but for example, you want to keep it in here, right? For example, that's why for Windows, you need to set up the environment variable here. That's why you have this step. You keep the database in this path for Windows. For Mac OS, you have a different command. Let me see. You install it. Okay. You create the name for path here. Just follow this, and so the bin here will be where you save your database. So the name could be something like this. The path, something like this. You can run this to means that you don't need any database. Or if you want to connect to a local database, you're gonna use.
In this lesson, we'll talk about Atlas. You'll learn what Atlas is.
Oh, this instruction only show you how to connect to a cloud server. Just right now, so
much of our interaction with.
So right now it's almost 12. So let's take a break here and install MongoDB. So if you run into any problem, I will walk you through later, case by case, right? It's different. So I cannot have the same command that can work for everyone, right? So let's take a break, guys. Do you have any question or are you unclear what to do during the break? Ta-da! The setup is very important. We need to set it up right now and make sure everything is running fine, so that in the next couple of weeks we can work with our project without any worrying about the MongoDB server. Okay. So during break, make sure you install Make sure you install Mongo
Hi, I'm Shannon.
following this instruction. Okay, one thing. Second thing, create an account on here. Create an account here. Okay, very simple. Just create an account with Google, and then I will show you how to create a new cluster. Right, that's it for what you have to do during the break until 1 p.m. 1:30 p.m. Okay, get back. And, okay. So you need to install all of those. Then we can do this first. Any questions? No. Right. That's too long. That's more than 1 hour, almost 2 hours. Right. All right. Okay, let's take a break and come back at 1:30 p.m. Ooh, there are two people who's not certified. That's all right. Anyway, you can PM me or just ask on the general channel so we can have. Setting up is very confusing. Don't worry. Right now, I run into problems all the time, but you need to know how to fix them by yourself. I'll walk you through. Don't worry. So let's take a break. See you guys later. Bye bye. Where am I? Stop recording.